Welcome in, everyone, to another special edition. I am your host, Blake Ruffino. This is AYS Sports. Hope all of you are having a great day. We know that we are as well. We are here with our good friends over at Service Hawk Digital Media, where they soar above the competition. You can, if you want to yourself, soar above the competition with Service Hawk Digital Media. If you need expert marketing in HVAC, electrical, generator pros, they do it all. Come over to our good friends over at Service Hawk Digital Media. We have been talking about them on our live shows. They are exceptional at everything that they do. That is why we're here, and we have partnered with them. Today's episode is brought to you by our good friends over at Craig's Electrical and Generators. Craig's Electrical and Generators has been a trusted name for generator installation and maintenance for years, and now they're bringing that same top-tier service for your AC maintenance. That's right. Craig's can now keep both your generator and AC system running smoothly so you're not left in the heat or in the dark. Don't wait until it's too late. Schedule your maintenance today by calling 504-290-0183. That's 504-290-0183 now, and experience the reliable service that Craig's is known for. We got a lot that we got to get into this morning. I know last night that we talked a lot about LSU and day one spring football. We're going to talk about that a little bit again more tonight. Listen, I got to think about this and kind of re-go through my notes and things that we saw from yesterday. I want to break down probably 3 or 4 key things more that we saw yesterday that we can dive into a little bit more. Let's start on offense like we did last night. I kind of want to lean back a little bit more into the offensive line because we did have a pretty long conversation about the offensive line, but I want to take it to another step forward here, and what I think we're seeing, what I think we're going to see, and what ultimately I do think that we're going to see in the beginning of August. Now, look, as Brian Kelly said yesterday in his press conference, the right guard or the offensive lineman, I shouldn't even call him the right guard, but the guard, tackle, or just the offensive lineman that you got in the portal and Josh Thompson will be here next week. He is graduating from Northwestern, a prestigious university and prestigious institution. We really need him after what I saw in the interior of the offensive line yesterday. Look, I'm not going to continue to get in the debate. I'm not going to continue to get into the discussion of you just being bad last year in the run game, but you were. I do hope, and I do think, and even Brian Kelly said when he was asked about him yesterday, he was asked, what do you expect from him? And he goes, oh, well, I expect a really good player, right? I expect someone who could come in here and play, and you really need him to hit. And I do think that he will. But yesterday, let's talk about what we saw and actually at the practice. I'm not necessarily I don't want to say I wasn't intrigued. I need to see a little bit more from your interior offensive line. I do think that DJ Chester looked a little bit more slimmed down. I do think that he was a little bit more explosive. He still was at center. There was an instance where he did get moved over to right guard on day 2, but he was at right guard for a couple of snaps yesterday, and I wrote that in my notes, and I did not talk about that last night. But he was at center for most of the day, backed up by Braylon Moore, the Virginia Tech transfer. I think that the biggest talking point for me at the current moment is going to see and want to see how they work through and how they do the interior of this offensive line. I feel as if, as of right now, that we have a pretty good idea of what you're going to do at right tackle. I feel as if everything that they're putting in on Weston Davis at right tackle, that they're going to give him the ultimate shot here to be able to lock that position down. Ethan Callaway did back him up. But, guys, I got to admit, I thought Tyree Adams looked good. I thought he looked the part. I thought his footwork was good. I thought his hand placement was really good. I just need to see a little bit more from that interior of that offensive line. Just a rehash of what we talked about last night of what it looked like with the first unit and second unit. The first unit in the interior, you had at left guard, you had Paul Mabinga, DJ Chester, and you had Bo Bordelon. I do not believe that we will see that from, I'm not going to say, I say much longer, but I don't know if we're going to see that even going well into the spring. And maybe they give Bo Bordelon the chance here to really try to lock that down. I do not think that that's going to work here. But he very well could surprise some people. What do I know? The thing for me is not necessarily what they did with the first unit based off of what they did with the second. Solomon Thomas at left guard You had Braylon Moore at center, and then you had Cohen Eccles at right guard was your second unit. Carius Kern, who I did think that would be in one of these guard positions, was at left tackle. And that does not mean that he will stay there. I do think that he will be moved inside at some point here. But I do believe that you're in a situation where they're going to give and throw as many lineups out there at practice as they can to see what's going to work. I do find it very interesting. I do find it, I don't want to say concerning, but I do find it a little concerning that you have a true freshman who's going to need to play guard more than likely in Carius Kern, that they have him at a tackle. That is not to say that Carius Kern cannot play left tackle, because if they believe that he can, he certainly can. But I believe that he's a guard. I find that very interesting. It is going to, I do believe, and after talking to some people last night after our show and talking to some this morning, I do feel like that we're just going to see a whole bunch of different combinations there. I do think that you'll see Braylon Moore with the first team, and I do think that DJ Chester, for what it's worth, will be moved to right guard or left guard. I do think that you'll see a lineup even here and there as they work through this, that Josh Thompson can move to guard, might move to right tackle. So we're just in the opening stages of what we're going to see along the offensive line. A slimmed down Brad Davis is what I'm going to say, because he was slimmed down from what we've seen, but he was really focused in on the interior. The analysts and other guys that are under Brad really focused in on the tackle play. When we saw him, I think Brad understands, and I think this entire team understands, this entire coaching staff understands. You're going to go as the interior offensive line goes. Brian Kelly, I mentioned this last night. Brian Kelly was with the interior of the offensive line when we were there for majority of the second half of practice. I think that everybody knows that you got to be able to run the football, and that is going to be a big deal for this team and what they've done. Again, I said this last night, but kind of want to double down on it, because I think I was a little too aggressive. And yes, I'm going to say I was a little too aggressive, but maybe a little too aggressive. I did not like what I saw completely from the interior, but it's day one and it is spring football. I do think, though, that Braylon Moore and DJ Chester I thought DJ Chester looked better, and I did think that Braylon Moore was explosive. You got to be better in that interior, man. I mean, it's got to be better. And we are not sponsored by 7 Brew, but I got to have my coffee. If I don't have my coffee, I'm going to be yelling at people. Anyway, let's continue here. Before we move on, last thing. I do think that this offensive line is probably the most intriguing unit to me right now. After getting out there and seeing everything, I mean, the interior defensive line, interior offensive line are the two most intriguing things. Did I think that safety play was about the same? Yes, because I'm going to punt this spring at the current moment. We got to monitor the safety play, and I'm not saying that we don't watch it. I want to keep my focus a lot into the interior offensive line, interior defensive line, because that's where you're going to win football games, man. You win games up front, and I spent a lot of focus on that. And we will be out there Saturday for the entire practice on Saturday, and I'm probably going to do the same exact thing. Spend a lot of my time and focus on both of those lines of scrimmage. We talked about wide receivers last night. I mean, I'll just reiterate what it did look like. Xavier Thomas, Aaron Anderson, and Chris Hilton were your starting three. Nick Anderson was a little bit gimpy, did not really see him. The second unit was Barian Brown, Destin Hill, and Kyle Parker. Kyle Parker was in a red jersey yesterday, meaning a non-contact jersey. Let's go here. Barry, your starting wide receiver room as of right now, I don't care what rotation they ran it in. I don't care what's going on, but your starting wide receiver room right now is Barian Brown, Aaron Anderson, and Chris Hilton. Guys, that I put a lot of emphasis on this. I do think that you have weapons. I don't even know. I'm trying to think of an analogy. I just think you have an abundance of riches outside. I think that you can attack teams really at the numbers or outside the numbers. I think because of what you have at tight end, which we'll talk about in just a moment, that you can attack the middle of the field. You can do a lot of different things with Barian Brown and Aaron Anderson. You know, there was a formation yesterday that I really liked that Joe Sloan did. He stacked Aaron Anderson and Barian Brown once on the left side, and it really forces teams not to be able to play man-to-man coverage on you, and you're going to have to play off of them with the speed that they have. There's a lot of different things, and if you are creative, and you can be creative, nothing's stopping this team from being creative. If you are creative with those 2 and 3 guys, I think that the sky's the limit. Guys, I was really impressed by what I saw at the wide receiver position. I think Barian Brown, the catch that he made yesterday, the over-the-shoulder catch, I mean, it was a little bit of an overthrow by Garrett Nussmeier, but it's a good throw. I mean, your receiver's got to make an adjustment. He made the adjustment. He made a ridiculous catch along the sidelines at the pylon, and it was a touchdown. It was beautiful, man. I mean, and I get that it's on air and things aren't going to be on air, but look, when you're adjusting like that to a quarterback that you've never seen, Barian Brown really not shocked me, because I thought that we could see a lot from him, a guy that returns 5, 6, 7, whatever it was. I think it might be 5. But 5 kick and punt returns for touchdown, broken SEC record. This kid's got explosiveness. This kid can fly. He's got hands. He even ran a dig route yesterday that I thought and call a pass from MVB that I thought was really impressive. I mean, the kid can. I think he can really play receiver here. Tight end, I'm going to add into this. Look, you did not have a starter. I mean, both guys, Bauer Sharp and Trades Green, ran with the 1s and 2s. They split up reps. I thought that new tight ends coach and run game coordinator Alex Atkins really focused in on that. Worked a lot with them on the end line of scrimmage. And one thing that I am really focused in on early on, I mean, they worked a lot yesterday on in line of scrimmage blocking and sealing the edge. I need to see Trades Green and Bauer Sharp really get into that. I think that you have, for what it's worth, 2 really good receiving tight ends, and there are so many different things that you can do with them. Now, you're not going to ask them to stay in for pass pro. You need those freaks of nature to be going out there and running routes. In reference to the run game, I think that was the most vocal that I had heard Alex Atkins all day, is when they were in the run game. Of course, a former offensive lineman, former offensive line coach, former coordinator in the ACC. I mean, he's really going to get after him for that, but he needs to, because you really need that position to be really good on the end line of scrimmage and blocking when you do have some speed with guys like Caden Durham and Harlan Berry and such. I do not believe that there's a better receiving tight end room right now in the SEC better than yours. I thought Bauer Sharp looked really good yesterday running routes. I thought Trades Green looked like the freak of nature that we saw at the end of the season. They got weapons, man. I do think that when you look at LSU offensively, when you look at everything that they presented, and now that you see it on the field, day one or not day one, the sky's the limit for this offense when it comes to receivers that they have. Now, we can talk about the run game, it needing to be better, the offensive line in the interior needing to be better. There's so many different things as a holistic offense that we can talk about with LSU. When you specifically talk about the weapons and what we saw yesterday, I think that you have one of the best units overall from a passing game standpoint. I'm not going to say in the entire country, but I certainly will say in the entire SEC. It was highly impressive from what we saw. Again, so many other intricate details that we got to get to. Can they hold up for Garrett and the interior of that offensive line? Can the tackles hold up? Can you run the football? That's all a part of the game. When I look at the 3 wide receivers, Barian Brown, Chris Hilton, Aaron Anderson, and I look at Bauer Sharp and I look at Trades Green, guys, that is a hell of a unit to run out there. It is a lot of things to work with. I really, really liked what I saw from there. Quarterbacks, guys, I thought Garrett was sharp, man. I thought Garrett was really sharp yesterday. The thing that I want to focus in on Garrett Nussmeier is pretty simple. I thought that yesterday when we saw Garrett, at least for day one, and again, we'll see how it looks when bullets start flying and we're in 11-on-11 and he's got pass rush coming in on him. Yesterday was the best that I'd ever seen Garrett Nussmeier's footwork. His footwork was as good as I'd ever seen it in his entire career, which tells me a couple things. One, that he's worked on it. 2, he understands that he's needed to work on. And there were times that he scrambled right, scrambled left. I thought his footwork and hand and shoulder placement and the way that he just leveled his base to get a good throw on. I thought that was really good. There was a situation in a drill where they're scrambling left, and I know that he likes to do that little spin out left. But even then, him getting depth, him throwing his hips, getting square to where he's throwing, getting his footwork in place, making really good throws. Whether it be individualized drills, whether it be 11 on 11 or 7 on 7, didn't matter. Yesterday was the best that I had ever saw Garrett Nussmeier's footwork from my vantage point. Now, again, like we talked about with the offensive line, like we talked about a receiver and how explosive that you can be, what does it look like when these bullets start flying? Can that O-line protect him enough that he can make those right decisions? When it comes to him as an individual and him as what we saw him in drills and what he did yesterday, for what it's worth, again, we'll reiterate, I thought that his footwork was the best I'd ever seen. You know that he's got a big arm. You know that he can throw the football with anybody in the country. I really like what I saw from his footwork, and that only comes down to, just the work that he's putting in the offseason. MVB, Michael Van Buren, the transfer from Mississippi State, kid can throw it. Kid is athletic, kid can throw it. There were a couple of times where he threw some deep passes yesterday, highly accurate. I think we saw Michael Van Buren last year at Mississippi State, going against teams like Texas, going against teams like Georgia, going against teams like Ole Miss. Guys, he faced 3 of your top SEC opponents last year at the end of the year and played really well with guys that probably aren't that great, right? Like against opponents that are not that, or are against really good opponents, but not probably having the talent that he will have at LSU. His deep ball accuracy was really impressive. I thought he made some throws that were on the dime. Needs to get a little bit better in short game stuff. I will be the first to admit that. His footwork was a little lazy at times, but even in that laziness, he was the throws were fine, right? They were on at the chest, at the helmet for a lot of these receivers and running backs when he made the throws, but he definitely made some throws yesterday down the field that really left me impressed. Focusing in on quarterbacks. Look, man, it's all about development. I do like and think that you're really good in your first and second unit here with Michael Van Buren and Garrett Nussmeier. I think that you would take that against anybody in the SEC at the current moment. The thing, though, that I would say is that, and this is so dumb to even have to bring up, once you get past them, there's a very massive drop-off, right? Like there's a massive drop-off there. Now, you get to your third-string quarterback in any situation, there's always going to be probably a massive drop-off. Juwan Johnson was at that third spot. And, man, look, if I was advising the young man, I'd tell him, look, man, it's time to move back to defense. It's time to move back to star, that star position. I just don't understand. Even in spring, I just don't know if I understand this decision here. That is my opinion. Brian Kelly, Juwan Johnson, Joe Sloan, even you can disagree with my opinion on that, and that is completely fine. I do not think that he is at the current moment. It is a work in progress. That's how I'm going to say it. There's a lot of work that's got to go in with Juwan Johnson at quarterback from throwing the football. Guys, you were in a system. Look what you saw last year. I mean, running the ball or not running the ball. Joe Sloan comes from an offense that they want to sling the football around. That is not built for what Juwan Johnson's at quarterback, what his strength's going to be. I've heard a lot of people bring up to me, well, put in a special package for him. Put in a special package. Guys, everybody in the country knows what you're going to do with him. And you're struggling to run the ball right now. They're just going to stack the box on you and make you push them around. You got to show that you can run the football first before you go out there and make special packages for guys that in the red zone. I mean, I'm not saying not to do it. I mean, we see even in Louisiana, we've seen that this is very productive. Hell, Taysom Hill comes in and, the white leopard, as they call him. I don't even know if anybody calls him white leopard. I think I just made that up. But regardless, we've seen it work. Look, there's a lot that's got to go into this. I don't think the young man can play quarterback in the SEC right now. I think that it is a massive drop-off. I'm interested to see what happens with Colin Hurley. I'm interested to see what happens with quarterback recruitment. You know, we talked about, and it's been reported. I know it's out there, and I know that there's a lot of people talking about it. I know there's a lot to be said in reference to what LSU and how LSU has responded since the Bryce Underwood fiasco. I say fiasco, but the situation at the end and LSU turning it up in NIL and doing what they needed to do still doesn't stop that you did not get a quarterback in this class outside of Michael Van Buren. You did not get a high school quarterback. And it probably would not have been that bad, but then you had a situation with Colin Hurley, and I do not know his status. So, again, if you get down to a third-string quarterback, it's not a good situation anyway. And listen, I think Michael Van Buren, if God forbid something happened to Garrett, and let's knock on wood, but God forbid if something did happen, Michael Van Buren is more than serviceable. We've seen him take really good reps and do some really good things in the SEC. So, all in all, I think that when I looked at the offense yesterday, I mean, there are some things you got to work on. Interior offensive line, run game. And listen, I didn't even talk about running backs here. We did this last night too. I made the mistake. I'm punting on running backs at the current moment. I'm punting on until Saturday, until we see this running back room and them get into 11 on 11 and them start running the football. I don't know what you want me to say. Hey, Caden Durham's an explosive athlete. Well, you know that. I know that. I think a lot of you are intrigued to hear about Harlan Berry. I am too. I'm very intrigued to see him more. And Brian Kelly said this in his press conference yesterday, right? Like, look, man, he put his nose in there. He had a 4-yard run. He made the right read. He's explosive, and he was pretty giddy talking about him. Well, let's go see it, right? Like, let's go see this. I do think, for what it's worth, if we're gonna end this about offense, about running back, we need to listen. If you're going to do special stuff in the spring, right? Like, and I put this in air quotes for everybody listening to us on the audio podcast side of things. If you're going to do special stuff, figure out what you're going to do with Harlan Berry first. Let's take this one step at a time, because that kid's more explosive and a better athlete than Juwan Johnson. Figure out what you're going to do with Harlan Berry. Guys, he's the #1 running back in the country. He's got electric speed. Let's go figure this out, right? So we'll see. All right. Let's move to defense. Man, see, your boy starts getting to talk about football. I get all giddy. You know, I start getting goosebumps and tingly. Might just be that I need to go get tested. All right. Everybody here look at me like, hey, man, this dude's a weirdo. It doesn't matter. Or it might just be that I'm on too much coffee right now. Who knows? All right, defense. Let's talk about defensive tackle. Yesterday, you were in a situation at practice where the only thing that you saw from this interior defensive line and the day one that we got to see him in practice was them getting off double teams. Good. I feel like what I saw yesterday was a guy in Kyle Williams who has a lot of knowledge. And look, I'm going to go ahead and say it. I don't give a damn. He's got probably more knowledge about in-game stuff than anybody that you've had. I love Bo Davis. Bo Davis is a great defensive line coach. Jamar Cain's a great defensive line coach. None of them know what it's like to be in the trenches like that more than Kyle Williams. None of them. Literally none of them. No defensive line coach that you have had has got more experience at the defensive tackle position after 13 seasons more than Kyle Williams. I am so tired about seeing and hearing about, well, what's his experience level? You dumb people out there that are saying that. And I call you dumb. Not smart is what I should say. My mama said, if I don't have nothing nice to say, don't say it at all. You unintelligent human beings. He played almost 200 games in the NFL. What I saw yesterday was I felt like I saw a guy that is a massive LSU fan. Clearly he is. I think that I saw a guy yesterday that looked at a situation last year with LSU and says, this team cannot get off of double teams at the DT position. It's all they worked on. Technique, what teams do, what offensive linemen do, how you're going to get off these double teams. Guys, you are not good enough. You aren't good enough right now at stopping the run in big game situations. What are we going to do to stop that? Well, you know what? We're going to rep the shit out of it. We're going to keep going after it over and 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 over again. That's going to be really good for closed captions. That's said over 17 times. We're going to perfect every single thing that we can do in the running game. That is it. Good. Look, I was talking to somebody yesterday in the media, and we were talking about defensive line play. They were like, "Oh, I'm surprised that Kyle Williams. I mean, he impressed me." Well, what did you think you were going to see? Guys, this dude is literally coming away from leaving the NFL. Nobody knows more about defensive tackle play. There is nobody, and I mean this, there is absolutely nobody that's ever been on that staff in the last half decade that knows more about defensive tackle play more than that man. That is the truth. So, sorry for the mini rant there. You got to get off double teams. You got to be better in the interior of your defensive line stopping the run, and that is just the truth. All right. The units as of yesterday, I did not spend a lot of time on this. Don McKinley, Ahmad Bro, where you're, I guess, starting defensive tackles. Something that's interesting I did not throw out there from yesterday. Ahmad Bro was the guinea pig for Kyle Williams. Obviously, the connection there with Kyle being at Ruston. Obviously, Ahmad Bro went through a lot of those things and drills when they were at Ruston and he was in high school, and he just had the connection. The second unit was Sadir Mitchell, and it was Zion Williams, the young freshman. You do have some talent there. I do think that you have some talent. Can you get enough out of that unit? That guys, that could be your season. Right there could be your season. I do think that if there is a defensive tackle that is out there in the portal, and we've talked about this, there are two positions that I think that you can top off in this transfer portal class. Is there a DT out there that you can go and get? I do think that let me say this. I'm not going to rely on a true freshman to be in my rotation. If somebody is out there that's got experience and is a good defensive tackle, and I go get a safety. We'll talk about that in a minute. You got to throw everything at the wall. You got to go spend money for Kyle Williams, and I hope that they do. The second to last thing that we're going to talk about this, we spent a lot of time on corner play yesterday. I'm going to punt on that. CJ Ross was at star. I'm going to punt on that. Let's see what they do more with him. Before we get to safeties, because I did not spend a lot of time on that yesterday, the edge. Jack Pyburn is a physical human being. He is an old school, tough nose. Put your, buckle up your chin strap, bite down on your mouthpiece. If you're not ready to defend Jack Pyburn and you're an offensive lineman or a tight end, you're going to get your ass whooped. Right? Like, I mean, you're quite simply going to get your ass whooped. I don't think that there was a more physical human being at the point of attack better than Jack Pyburn yesterday. He is a physical player. He is tough, and I do think that you have lacked a little bit of that. Okay? I don't know what Jack Pyburn's going to do for you at LSU. I have no clue. Here's what I do know. The intensity that he brings to that position has elevated the play of guys like Gabe Relaford, who started on the other side of him. Gabe Relaford looked good. Okay, man. I thought that he slint. I felt like I saw a guy in Gabe Relaford yesterday that lost baby fat. It looked good. See what he does when you really start getting going. Those pads get on. Nope. I said this last night. We were walking out of practice yesterday, and defense versus offensive run game drills. Welcome to the SEC, Weston Davis. I mean, Jack Pyburn blew the entire play up. I'm very intrigued by Jack Pyburn. I thought Pat Payton, spare me with the whole Pat Payton. Oh, he didn't give effort. Spare me with that. It was interesting. Pyburn blows up a play. Relaford's running off. Patrick Payton coming in. Jack Pyburn stays in. Jamari Butler goes into the interior. That was the second unit that they kind of ran out there to kind of get some things going. It is going to be very unique to see what they do with that edge position. Jack Pyburn is going to play a lot on early downs, I think. So that'll be interesting. All right. Last but not least, let's get to safety. I don't even need my notebook for this. You need another safety. I don't want to get in the debate right now. I mean, we clearly could. The bottom line, in my humble opinion, is that you're not good enough at safety. I do not think you're ready to go there. I thought that they did not look good at all. Guys, it's really easy when you've got guys that are experienced and know what they need to do with drills to be able to accomplish those drills. They didn't. Like, there was a lot of misunderstanding, a lot of lack of communication, maybe. I don't know. I do not know. Guys, the bottom line right now is that I don't think that you have a safety that's good enough to cover in the SEC. I don't think you have a safety that's good enough to tackle in the SEC. So the two things that you need, you're not ready to go there. I hope that they just had a really bad day and that on Saturday when we come for the post game for baseball and we come out there and I'm like, yo, safety play, hello. Maybe they had a bad day. I don't know. Goodness to gracious, great balls of fire, as the great song says. That was as bad as I'd seen LSU safety play in quite some time. Slow, not knowing where to be. They got to figure something out. I'm asking Ashton Stamps if he wants to move there. I really am. By the way, that star position, Harold Perkins and CJ Ross. Harold Perkins, for what it's worth, Harold Perkins was doing a workout, training yesterday on the bike and then the med ball. After that, he's walking with he's working with Lance Guidry. He stood by Lance Guidry the whole time. That back end safety play is not good enough. It's not effective enough. So, look, we'll see how this continues. But that is your update for as of now. I'm just not. Yeah, that's right. That's safety play right there. Ouch. She didn't hear me. It's that bad. It is that bad. You know, like when you don't. I don't know. I don't know how to explain it. I should have come in here with a better analogy. All right. We were here with our good friends over at Service Hog Digital Media. Go over to Service Hog Digital Media, servicehog.io, right? IO. Don't let me forget that. Also, our good friends over at Craig's Electrical and Generators, thank you so much for being a part of the show. Until later on, we'll see y'all soon. You have a good one. Peace.